Hey guys, did you know that I have a Patreon where you can support me and plus get awesome rewards? Or if you're thinking to yourself, but Julian, I want even more bang for my buck while still supporting you, you can pop over to my Redbubble and check out my awesome store with new designs appearing regularly. But for now, enjoy the video you're about to watch.
Hey guys, it's me, Julian Greystoke. I'm sorry that the lighting is shitty and just so cut in half. I'm supposed to have natural light coming from this side, but it's cloudy today, so this is just what we have to deal with. So today's going to be kind of an impromptu video that I've been thinking about doing for a while, and I really should have written down some notes, but I didn't, so here we are. So I wanted to talk to you all about my experiences as a caterer, because I worked as a caterer for about 3 years, and I know that I have read a few contemporary books where a character has been a caterer, or briefly worked in catering, or just catered an event. So I thought it would be cool for all of you writers out there for you to know what it's like to be a caterer so that you can write the catering experience realistically. I worked for a somewhat large and fancy catering company. We were pretty upscale, and as such, we were out of a hotel, but the hotel had a big fancy kitchen in the back. We had a chef, an actual chef, a went to culinary school chef. Some places that are smaller don't have a chef, they just have cooks. We had several cooks that were under the chef. I worked with 2 chefs. There were 3, but one didn't stick around for a very long time. The first one was older, and he had a lot more of the sort of regimented style to him, so it was yes chef, no chef, that kind of thing. We weren't supposed to use his name, it wasn't chef. I'm gonna use fake names just because I don't like to put other people out there if they don't want to be. So it wasn't yes chef Jim, no chef Jim. Later we got another chef who was a lot less formal, and he was consequently also younger, so you could use his name and you didn't even necessarily have to call him Chef Greg at all, you know. So it's down to how your chef feels about it. Everyone else in the kitchen was just first names. Everyone had a job in the kitchen. Obviously, the chef was in charge of everyone. He was also in charge of purchasing food, food supplies. The first chef we had especially tried to source locally. He would often go to farmers markets and such to find things to bring in to make the food with, but there was also, because we were feeding a large quantity of people a lot of the time, there's also a lot of potatoes in bags, mashed potatoes in bags and stuff going on. And it was just a big, well-oiled machine, and on a busy day, you wanted to stay out of the way of that machine. Now, I should say that this catering company that I worked for did a lot of different kinds of caters. So I've got a lot of experience with all different kinds, which is good for this video. We did everything from huge weddings and events to small company meeting type caters. So I'll start with the small company meeting type ones, and this is something a lot of people don't know. They think of caterers, they think, oh well, caterers, they only do big weddings and they only do family events and stuff like that. But no, caterers, the majority of the caters that you would be on would be as small caters to office buildings, to their lunches, to their meetings, to their small events. And so we had a lot of offices that we went to in our area, and you got very familiar with all of the offices, all of their layouts, their receptionists, all of that. By the way, Jane is here. He's on my lap and you can't see him. But he's laying there, probably going to drool. Oh, you guys, I forgot to show you my shirt. Sorry, Jane. Today I'm wearing my red shirt, which I figured was appropriate, because when you're a caterer, you're just a cog in a wheel, you're just a red shirt. So I bought this shirt for WisCon and then left it at home, because I'm a failure. Anyway, back to catering. So the majority of the catering that your character would be doing would actually be small caters. And of course, your schedule is at the whim of the people who need caters, so your scheduling is going to be all over the place. Most of your caters for offices are going to be happening around lunchtime. So sometimes you would be loading up your van with 3, 4 caters going to different places. One would have 12 people, one would have 20 people, and you get them all in your van. Again, this is all super random, and I didn't write any of this down, so I hope this isn't too rambling all over the place. Catering vans, real quick. You see catering vans going by and you think, oh, the inside must be like special somehow. No, catering vans basically are just a van that's had all the seats taken out and like rubber mats put in, and the stuff just gets set in the van. And you get really, really good at real life three-dimensional Tetris. And another rule of thumb is that anything that can tip over will tip over in your drive, and you just have to make sure that it doesn't fall over on the food. Because you are stacking Schaefers in there, you are stacking like hot water in there for the Schaefers, you are trying to figure out how to get food in there without smushing any of it with other food. It's a real skill, and something that people don't think about very often. You're getting like the hot boxes, they're called Cambros because that's the brand. You're getting your Cambros in there, and maybe you stack them, but you have to make sure they don't tip over. You need a cart in there to help you take stuff into the building if they don't have a cart. So it's a whole thing. So let's just start at the beginning of a caterer's day. You come in, obviously, you know, the usual stuff, clock in, blah, blah, blah. Say hello to the kitchen, let them know that you're there. And then you prepare your cater. And at our place, we did a lot of presentation. So we would get like linens and decorations. We had some like fake flowers and stuff that we would bring. Some places don't do that. And then of course we'd have to get the plates and the forks and all of that stuff together. You don't want to forget any of that, because if you do, that's a problem. I know this might seem obvious, but I'm just making sure that you know for your book, you got all these little details. Your character could fuck up and forget something as simple as forks. And then you go into the kitchen and you get your cold food and you get that all out into your van, and if it's summertime, you better have your air conditioning running in your van, or else the cooks are going to come after you and be like, no, fucking no, you can't take this food out into a hot van. Then, finally, the last thing that you grab is your hot food, and you put it in your Cambros and you haul those heavy-ass things outside. If you're wondering what the heaviest food is, it is mashed potatoes. Mashed potatoes is the heaviest food. But you really, really, really need to make sure that you are not forgetting anything. It's super easy to forget something like desserts or chips or something. So that is, again, that's something that perhaps if you want your character to fuck up, that's something that they could easily do, is forget something like that. And then you have to figure out how to get that to the people who paid for it. And I will not regale you with all the times that I fucked up, but trust me, I fucked up loads of times. Sometimes I wonder how I was not fired. So that's a small cater. Those are the smaller caters. You get to the office, you greet the receptionist, and if they're familiar with you and you've been there a lot, they usually just let you go. Set up where you usually set up, somewhere in the building, and whether you have to go up floors, whether you have to weave your way through the building. One thing that is definitely true, you are on a very tight schedule, so you have to keep an eye on your time. You cannot go overtime, you have to be there, and the food has to be ready when they are ready for it. And when you get there, they're going to show you your way through the building maximum once. So you have to memorize the route. I got very good at memorizing my way through a building the first time. So that is, again, a skill that your character will have to have. Perhaps they could get lost in the building. And if any of you are looking at getting a catering job, you know, this might be helpful to you. You gotta learn fast and memorize fast. Now let's talk about large caters, and there's so many different kinds. Weddings, anniversaries, we've done some funerals, but we've done some very huge things. We worked with the PAC, the Fox Cities Performing Arts Center, which is a really big theater near us, and we would do a lot of events with them, and it could be a little insane. One time I had to set up a display, 3 displays with 2,000 cupcakes, and I had to set out the cupcakes individually. I was there all day. Anyway, but whatever the big event, you still have to have the timing, you still have to have everything on point, but there's like so much more food and so much more decoration and just so much more. Usually the maximum that we would have on a large caterer that was not a wedding is 3 caterers. So you all have to be working together. Once everything was set up, unless it was a wedding, usually what you would end up doing is either serving or replenishing. Serving, obviously, you were actually giving the food to people. Replenishing, you were mostly just around, like keeping an eye on things, and oh no, the candied bacon has run out. Get a new tray of candied bacon and replace it right away, you know, that kind of thing. So those are the 2 kind of things that you would do. Serving is more if you're worried about portion. If the kitchen is worried about portioning, usually unless there's a special request for you to serve, the people kind of want you out of the way. They don't want to think about you, they kind of want you to be invisible. So those are like one kind of big events, and we would also do what's called a mill feed, where we would have every shift, we would do a big cater to cover an entire factory full of people for 3 shifts. And that was kind of crazy, but I would do that one a lot because I was good at it, and I could also climb stairs with heavy food. Cardio. There are a lot of stairs. They usually sent me to do the stairs because I could handle them. Then you've got weddings, which are pretty much a whole other animal. We did a lot of outdoor weddings because obviously if you're outdoors then a venue doesn't supply you with food. So I kind of, like, weddings were my least favorite. I low-key, not even low-key, I hated doing weddings. I would pretty much do anything I could to not be scheduled for a wedding, because they're the worst. I don't know why, but it almost always rains, and it's never pleasant, and you're always having to carry food in giant trays across uneven ground to the big tent where it's being served, and it is just not a good time. Usually with a wedding, not only are there many caterers, often like 5 or more, the chef and some cooks will often come along to plate and set the food on location. So usually we will have our own tent once we were in a garage, but we would bring all the food in a lift truck. We would need a large truck for this, and we would have, like, in these giant hot rolling warming oven things along with us, and it was a really big production. Oftentimes you will see in movies and stuff, you will see caterers doing what's called butlering, where they're out with the trays of, you know, hors d'oeuvres and whatnot, and that does happen. I've done that a couple of times. It's an okay gig for the most part. You eventually start to feel really weird. You feel really weird while you're doing it because you feel like you're intruding on people's, like, party conversations to shove food at them, but at the same time they want the food. It's a weird dynamic. So that was what I did, and yeah, you just walk around with a tray till your arm's ready to fall off, and giving people tiny foods. Well, here's another really big thing about catering. You have got to have an iron willpower, because you have got to set out all this delicious food and you cannot have any of it. Then, once we were finished butlering all of the hors d'oeuvres, then it was mealtime, and if you were lucky, it was family style, which meant that you had to bring incredibly heavy, large, giant trays out there, but you didn't have to serve them to each person individually. You just put them in the middle of the tables and people served themselves. If you were not lucky, it was plated, and I am so bad at plated dinners because you have your section like you would if you were working in a restaurant. You have your section, and you have to beforehand basically memorize your section. Somebody's getting beef and somebody's getting vegetarian, and somebody's getting the chicken and somebody's getting the fish, and you have to memorize that, and you have to get it all to the right person, because, you know, they'll have the little tags most of the time, but half the time they've knocked it over, it's on the ground. Nothing is helpful. This is where I was bad at it, and this is why I didn't like to do weddings, because I can memorize a building, I can be on time for things, but I am terrible at remembering who had what food, especially when I have 4 tables to do that are mine. I'm also in charge of their drinks, and I have to have memorized what they're having. I hate it. I hate it. And then, of course, you have to take everything down and take all of the unused food back to the kitchen. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people often complain to us caterers, you know, oh, you waste so much food. You always take the food back. A lot of times in offices we would let them, like, pack up whatever they wanted in their own containers. That's fine, whatever. A lot of times at bigger caterers we take the food back, and a lot of it, yes, does end up being thrown out. And you're like, well, why do you do that? Why so much food waste? And it is because of portioning. We always need to bring more food than is needed because you cannot run out of food. You always bring more food than is necessary in case. And yeah, a lot of it does end up being brought back. The chefs try their hardest to get, like, as close as they can to the amount of food that will be needed, but obviously there's no way you can predict how much people are going to eat. There's just no way. That's the reality of catering. I'm sorry, I've let the seedy underbelly be seen by all. But hey, if you are at an event that is catered and everyone else has gotten their food, go ahead and eat, like, as much as you want, because the caterers don't want to bring that food back. We don't. It's heavy, it's messy, we don't want it back. So, like, if you're like, oh no, I don't want to eat the last of something, fucking eat the last of it. If everybody's gotten some, go ahead. Anyway, I hope that this was helpful to you and you didn't find it like completely useless and random and what the heck are you talking about, Julian. And I hope if you are writing a book, oh, one thing I did want to bring up. This is a thing, this is the cliche you see all the time in movies and stuff, where a character has to go undercover and they will just put on a caterer's uniform and go in. That would never, ever, ever work. In a catering company, you know what your coworkers look like. You know your coworkers really well because you have to work together to make things succeed. And if some rando showed up wearing a uniform, you would be like, who are you? And what are you doing? And you couldn't just like wear a uniform, walk up, grab a tray, and go out. That's not how it would work. People would stop you at like every step of the way. So there you go. Those were my thoughts on catering, and if you want to have a character doing it, now you can do it more realistically. Yay! Hopefully, anyway. I hope this was enjoyable. Don't forget that I post new videos Mondays and Fridays. All the links to my social media are in the doobly-doo. So go click on them if you want. And if you liked what you saw here but you were dying for it to be higher quality, I have a Patreon for that. All of the support on Patreon goes towards getting me better equipment, maybe lights, definitely a better camera, slowly saving up, so consider doing that. Plus you can earn some fun rewards. And I will see all of you again next time with whatever it is I happen to be doing next time. Bye!
Hey everybody, it is shout out time. Time for me to shout out to my amazing patrons, Kim, Sarah, and Savvy Panda. So if you want to be cool like these great people, then become my patron over on Patreon.